Yes, sir. Does it look better on the painting? I think it looks better. A lot more accurate. And hopefully not getting so much glare. But we'll see, because the whole painting is pretty matte. So I'm just getting this walnut oil gel over the whole thing to give it a nice surface to work on. And then we'll see what kind of light it catches. Yeah, I don't care if my face is in shadow. Honestly, because otherwise I would have to have a light like on my face over here, and it makes it really difficult, I've found, to judge values accurately in a analog painting when I have a light shining kind of in my eyes. Digital, it doesn't bother me because I'm looking at a screen, I'm looking at light, so it doesn't really matter. But with the analog painting, not fun to try and I find my eyes start to get tired from that. So, you know, I'd rather not do that and end up with a better painting. I can just be the mysterious artist up in the corner. Of course, there's so little glare that I'm like, I can't even quite tell where I've put the walnut oil now and where I haven't. I'm not used to that. This is a much better lighting setup for painting. But the walnut oil gel should give me a nice surface to work into, as long as it's not too thick. I want to brushes here that I know I'm going to end up using. I think I'll be using a big brush from this sitting that I know of. Anyway. Alright. I think I want to clean up. I don't know if clean up is the right word. Kind of. silhouette a little bit. Can I use these brushes are a little long for that, but I have these awesome pockets in my apron Hey, thanks for the follow, Turner512. Alright. Let's see here. Pretty good. Maybe a little bit light. Still a little light. Damn. I think I might have to squeeze out some little bit of new color. So last time I was using that lavender spike oil to kind of thin the paint down. Not a huge fan of it. Like coming out of it, not my favorite thing in the world. But I have kind of fallen in love with this walnut oil gel. Like this stuff, I'm really digging. So that's cool. Alright, that stuff's dry. I need more of that. I should have pulled out all these colors first. Now it's in here somewhere. Yeah, it's too, the scent is too strong. Like, I get that it's pretty non-toxic, but it was like overwhelming. And especially if you're kind of sitting right up on a painting, you know, a smaller painting, you're gonna get a lot closer to it. And it was just like, it was hectic. Plus, you know, they say that it has about the same drying time as like turpentine and mineral spirits, but I felt like it started to dry a bit faster, and the problem with it when it does start to dry, it gets really gummy, you know, so you get this really tacky surface that was kind of hard to work with, at least when I was trying to do washes with it, you know, early on. So I don't know, maybe it would be better if I mixed it with a little bit of Gansol, but I feel like that starts to defeat the purpose, so I don't know. I felt like it wasn't terribly necessary anyway. I feel like this walnut gel gets me a pretty nice thin coating. Now if you want the texture of like really kind of watery, more runny paints, then that spike oil or just biting the bullet and using Gamsol might be a little better. But so far, yeah, I'm loving the gel for any kind of like thinner. Just want to add a little bit of like color variation in here. background to be too monochrome. Get a little bit of color happening. Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, I think the mic is also a little lower than it usually is, but how's that? I think the mic is like 4 decibels lower than it usually is. Is that better? Or is the music still trying to one-up me? Should I up the mic a little bit? Because I don't really like to have to yell or anything. I'm sure the upstairs neighbors would appreciate me not yelling as well. But I could up the mic. Let's bring the mic back. I don't know why it got kicked down to 0 on its own, because, you know, OBS. Just 2 dB. How's that? Is that better? Hey, Viscera, how's it going? Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad. Alright, I wanna... Now, some of this stuff might change. I'm hesitant to get, like, super specific this early, but I kind of want to give myself room to paint back out if I want to. Doing well, you know, back to oil painting. I think I have a better lighting and camera setup now. It's a lot more accurate. Of course, I also realized after last stream that I had the what are they? It's not film simulation in the Sony cameras, but it's basically their styles or whatever. I had that turned on because I'd been using it as my webcam. And so that's why last time I was like, man, the color is so much hotter on the stream than it is in real life. And it was because I had that turned on. Once I realized that, I was like, oh, okay, turning that off. Yo! Samurai Shaft, how you doing, brother? You getting any snow out your way? Yeah. I know Greg had mentioned his parents got like 41 inches overnight. Holy crap. Hey Mauricio, how's it going? Yeah, dude, I don't know when I guess I saw fresh snow a couple years back, but only because I went up to my friend's place up at Fraser Park. We were there for New Year's and got lucky enough that we got some snow, so that was fun. But I also, like, where I grew up in Northern California was still on the coast, so it's not like, you know, it's not like we got snow there. You know, it's not something that I grew up with. Gotta finesse some of these shapes a little bit. Yo. Thanks for sharing that stuff. And now you get a Dena sub badge. I hope you're a cat lover. Let's do a bit on this Jaguar, this black Jaguar, and then we'll get back to her. Just kind of want to bring this one a little more in line with this. Actually, you know, I was gonna paint the teeth in, but I'm better off getting those darks in there. Mix up some dark here. That's a good question. And hello, Alex. How you doing? Alcohol. No, alcohol is for inspiration. Coffee is for productivity. I think with a longer term project, it would vary for me depending on whether we're talking digital or traditional. Because traditional, I can always get into the process, right? The kind of the journey of the longer piece. It's a lot of fun, that tactile feedback of the brush on the surface and the different textures and the paint and all that stuff. So for me, with a traditional piece like this, Sorry, I'm just looking for. There we go. It's that journey and the process that can really just keep me coming back to it, that I have a lot of fun with. For digital, it can be a little trickier sometimes, because it's not so much about the process, it's more about the end result. Of course, it's a lot faster, so it's not as long term necessarily. But what'll keep me interested is that story with digital, the storytelling. So, yeah, it varies, I guess. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge sometimes. It's not always easy to keep the motivation. I was on the fence tonight. I was like, I could kind of keep working on work stuff because, I'm trying to take at least a couple days off next week. But nah, let's do some real painting. Okay, so if I'm not facing the mic as much, I should bring it up. All right. Okay, how's that? Is that mic better? Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons that so this process that I'm currently doing is I basically just printed out an older drawing of mine, from I don't know 2 or 3 years back, and I just sealed the surface and I'm painting on top. But the nice thing with that is then I don't have to focus as much on, coming up with some new idea for a piece, right? I'm like, no, I have all these drawings that are good drawings that, I like a lot, that I think would be cool paintings. So I figured, hey, let's just paint those up, and then I can kind of give my brain a bit of a break from having to like constantly come up with new ideas, and I can kind of just focus on getting some cool paintings done, because I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I just every time I sat down to do it, I just couldn't really just think of something that I really wanted to paint that wasn't way more involved than I was prepared to get into. So who's there? There's a person at your front door. Well, person detected. Awesome. Well, dude, thanks for popping in. I appreciate that. You too, brother. Hope you're doing well out there. Trying to think of where these two fall in relation to each other. I'm just looking at it on stream to kind of get, you know. Feel like she would be casting a shadow, at least partially. I'm keeping these darks like pretty warm. I sometimes have a tendency to go really cool with certain things. More so in the lights than in the shadows, but try and avoid that this time around. There's a lot of things I'm trying to avoid this time around. Do want the lights on the Panthers to be a bit cooler. Just to allude to that kind of black color a bit more. Did I? Really quick. Sorry. Oh, that's why. Haha. Have to put that over there. Sorry, just had to tweak. Whoop. Don't focus on the stick. Give him the stick. Don't give him the stick. I'm having to really like remind myself to slow down. I've been doing like digital painting all day, and it's easy to just kind of like stay in that mindset and go full steam ahead, and then before you know it, you start making marks that you can't take back. That's no fun. Yo, Jay-Z. What's up, brother? How you doing? I know it is a very Frazetta themed piece, but I'm okay with that. I make no secret of my inspiration from Frazetta. There's still kind of a greenish quality in here that I'm not totally loving. So we're gonna just sort of play with some bringing in a bit more warmth into some of that stuff, and maybe a little more cool into the shadows to bring them a little closer. Our trusty walnut oil gel, and I really can't express enough how much I'm loving this stuff. It took me a little getting used to because I was so used to Gamsol like thinning the paint out, and I'm not used to using something just as a way to extend the paint rather than thinning it out. But I'd knocked out a little painting on Tuesday, I guess. Yeah, no, I'm liking that kind of juxtaposition of warms and cools. Even though this isn't really that cool. It's like a fairly warm gray, but next to these like hot darks, it definitely comes off a lot cooler, which is a lot of fun to play with. Yeah, so I had knocked out another painting about this size on Tuesday. I can't show it on stream because it has full frontal nudity. I'm mostly waiting for it to dry so I can scan it in and post it because I just cannot seem to get a good picture of it. Well, also I want to glaze some of it back. The light's got a little too light, but it gave me a chance to really kind of mess around with some of these newer additions to my process, and that's kind of when I ditched the spike oil and really embraced this walnut gel. I don't want any of the darks on this one to be as, punchy as the ones here, but I mean, I don't mind if a couple of them are, but overall, I do want that one to sit back a little bit more. So I don't want to get too close to that, but Jay-Z, when are you gonna pick up some oils again? Oh, everybody, let's thank Arthur Kell for them thar subs. And if you don't already, go give Archer Kell a follow. He is a fellow streamer. He is a very dear friend, one of my besties. And he's damn good at what he does. Co-worker as well. So, you know, go check him out. He streams art Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Oh, snap. Alright, let's get into some little smaller details on this one. And I gotta say, not having that spike oil open is rather nice, because that shit was strong. It was like, literally, it was like lavender scented Vicks vapor rub. It was so strong. Smelled nice, but not if you're sitting over it for hours and hours. And it's a little much, a little much. Gonna have to get up on here a bit. Yeah, I'm sure we could. Like, I'm looking at my palette here, and I have way the fuck more tubes of paint than what I have out here. And this is kind of the palette that I'm landing on. And it's so interesting because I think about like Jeremy Lipking's palette, and you see his colors laid out and they look so like beautiful and clean, right? He's got these beautiful cadmiums and cobalts and whatever, and yet he manages to get this really lovely kind of like muted palette when he paints. But for some reason, I don't know. I don't love working with those colors myself. Plus, other than this cadmium red light, which I know you guys can't see because I'm blocking it. Other than cadmium red light, I don't have any other heavy metal paints on my palette. The manganese blue, I think, would be, except that this is a manganese blue hue, so it's a synthetic pigment, not the actual one, because I don't know if... I think there are very few places that make an actual manganese blue anymore. They're pretty much all hues at this point. I think the ones that make an actual manganese, that shit is expensive. Like, obviously, Old Holland makes a true manganese blue, but like I said, fucking expensive. I'm gonna get into the eyes on this one a bit. This will be interesting. I'm not even quite sure how I can get my hand over there. It might be a little too bright, actually. I don't put my brush in my mouth, it was the handle. I'm very actually like pretty clean when I paint. By the way, if you guys follow those links, you can join the humble little Discord, I think down at the bottom of the link tree, if you want to like share your work. We like to give feedback and whatnot. At least I like to give feedback. I don't know if anyone else does. You got the shop link if you want some t-shirts or prints or some fancy museum quality prints even. There's the socials you can follow. There's the pre-order for the book, which I think so far is still on track to ship, I believe, either this month or next month. Hopefully that doesn't change. Who knows? Figure out how I can get those teeth going. Just need more paint on my brush than what I've got. Right on. Alright, you know what? All this is walnut oil, so I'm not really going to worry too much about whether my hand gets in it or not. Because the rest of it's dry. I just thrown some walnut oil on it to give the paint, the surface, kind of the feel of wet paint for me to paint into. But thankfully, hey, walnut oil, non-toxic, food grade, you can cook with it. It's gonna lick my painting. No, I don't think you'd want to cook with the walnut oil gel, but as far as they know, it has no known toxic properties, so that's good. I want to get a little tiny spark in this other one's eyes. Little more of a spark here. I know this is so tiny on stream. I could probably move the camera closer, but that was it. So oh, hell yeah, man. Well, I will sign that shit, Jay-Z, and I'll even do a sketch in it, and we'll make it worthwhile. A little Golden State cider, Brut. Their Brut cider is brewed with champagne yeast. So it's this beautiful, dry, hard cider, right? A hard apple cider, fresh pressed apples, no added sugar. So it's not overly sweet, and then has this really lovely, like, slight champagne taste to it that I just can't get enough of. I love it. I love this shit. That makes it sound like I'm drinking it all the time, when I've had the same 4-pack in my fridge for about a month now. So clearly I can get enough of it. Get a little more light on. Might be a little too light, but we'll see. We'll see. And man, Jay-Z, I honestly can't wait to see the book in person. You know, it's so weird because, you know, we launched that Kickstarter obviously not too far into the pandemic, that now it just feels like so long ago. It's really weird. I'm debating if I'm gonna do any kind of like whiskers on them. If I do, I have a feeling I will actually just use a pencil and do it, because this, you know, details that small, just not really gonna work in with a brush unless I use like a tiny little, like a model painting brush, and that just seems kind of silly. But I like the idea of having details that small. I just don't think that my brush will be able to get that. Oh, really? Is it buff? No, even on mine, it looks like it's buffering. Oh, and we're back, I think. Okay. That's honestly though, it's I've been having some issues with buffering too, even with having one Twitch stream open, and I feel like it's something from Twitch because I have gigabyte internet. So, you know, it's clearly them, not me. I blame Autumn. He is clearly the common denominator here. Hello, Bava. I just said that like that's a Hindi name, and I don't know if it actually is. It could be Behava or Bihava. But my cousin's name is Bhavna, and so that's like Bhavna without the N. It's so hard to know with like, you know, internet handles if it's supposed to be something clever or if it's an actual name. All right. Let's feel like the kitty is okay. What I might do for y'all. Oh, it is a Sanskrit word. Right on. Then I'm not crazy. I'm gonna bring the camera a little closer here. Just because I'm gonna focus a bit on her face. Let's see if I can, I don't know how close I can bring it. We'll do a combo of bringing the camera closer and maybe bringing the easel a little closer. All right. Oh yeah, well it also helps that I adjusted the color on the camera, like the color profile. I forgot last time that I actually had like one of the styles turned on last time, so it like saturated everything and made it all really warm. And so I turned all that stuff off, so it's just on neutral now, and we can actually see it much more accurately. Thanks, Mauricio. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Cami, I'm working, what size? 9x12. 9x12 inches is what I'm working on. So, yeah. All right, so remember this is actually all underpainting still, right? So the skin tone currently is literally, it's just a transparent red iron oxide and white, right? There isn't any real color modulation in it yet, so I want to get that in. I want to get some cools and some darks and stuff going on in some of these other places as well. So I might just create a little bit of a kind of a wash. It's weird because it acts as a wash, but it's not thin, right? Like it would be with Gamsol. It's just, the pigment is just way stretched out with the walnut oil. So I can get it really nice and transparent, just like I would with, you know, with any kind of a normal glaze. I just want to sort of, maybe a little too thin there, huh? So then that's the other thing, is if you get colors, if you start kind of stretching out colors that are on the weaker side, you know, then they'll just lose everything. So there's a bit of a learning process still for me here using this gel in terms of the way that it works, and because it does add a lot of transparency. this to be like a darker leather kind of a thing. And then some of this I just want to get the darks, the accents, and the different kind of some of the folds and things, because I haven't quite decided what colors I want all this stuff to be yet. I'll probably keep it all like fairly earthy, but I will want to play with saturation and temperature a little bit, but like while I will keep it all within these kind of warmer ranges, you know, desatting stuff will make it feel much cooler, as we found with our big cats here, you know. And I think this is kind of one of my favorite parts of the process, whether I'm doing digital or analog, is starting to just kind of nudge colors around, right? Nudge temperatures one way or the other to kind of get a, you know, hopefully fun sort of color play happening. I do always like it when the camera recognizes the face, so I can see like it's got the eye tracking on right now on her left eye. That's always a nice kind of like, hey, at least I'm not too far off the mark, you know. It's like when if you upload a drawing or a painting to like Facebook, and then it asks to tag the person in the painting. Wait, and then it's always fun to see like who Facebook thinks it looks like. You guys remember Facebook, right? Electrical tape pasty. Again, my little nod to Tank Girl here. Yeah, I'm not totally certain about that. You know, I could, because I can always add something into the background if I decide to. I feel like I would try something digitally first, you know? That's the benefit now of all the technologies that we have, is that, you know, there are ways that we can sort of test things out as we're painting without having to risk, you know, messing it up too bad. Normally I would have figured that out already, but I don't really feel like it needs more per se, but it would be kind of fun to have something that maybe hints just a little bit more at the environment. I just don't want to overdo that, you know. So we'll see. I might. But I would rather like kind of get this a little further along and then see if I feel like, you know, adding something in would, if I feel like it would make it better or not, you know. I will err on the side of wise words by Harvey Dunn, where he said, if you're struggling with what to add to a painting and you can't figure out what more it needs, take something out. Now, there isn't really anything for me to take out in this painting, but adding to a painting, I feel, is rarely the answer. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. So we'll just have to see if I feel like it's lacking something or not. Hello, I'm Simmer. How are you doing? How are you doing? Welcome back. Let's not forget that. Sorry, I know I'm just about off camera here. I just didn't want to lose the cast shadow from our cat on her leg. Right on. Alright. Now, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I can't complain. I'm digging where this painting is going so far. Trying really hard to make, you know, good choices and not fuck it up, because I would be bummed. But I feel like, you know, we're in a good place. And there actually has not really been a point so far where I felt like the painting was in trouble. So that's a good thing. Bit of a dark brown, but something that's a little more desaturated than some of the stuff we've been using. Yeah, man, Harvey Dunn had some very interesting things to say. I think sometimes he just maybe liked a little too much to get really clever with what he said. I think he enjoyed just fucking with his students, is my guess. Just saying shit and just watching the gears in their brains try to turn and ponder whatever the fuck he was saying at the time. But that doesn't mean it was wrong. But I think he... my guess is there was probably a bit of the mystery of art that he really loved and wanted to kind of keep some of that, the mysterious aspects going, you know? But, I mean, you know, what he said most of the time, at least the different notes and things that I've read of his, they all resonate, so he knew what the hell he was doing. I mean, hell, you know, he was one of Cornwell's main teachers, so clearly he knew what he was doing. So some of this stuff I'm just wanting to get a bit of paint on the surface, right, that I can kind of paint into and mix a bit on the canvas. Not everyone likes to mix on the canvas, and you don't have to do it. I know it is like one of the time-honored traditions, depending on which school of thought you adhere to. Hello, Shane. What's up, brother? Well, I'm glad you at least popped in for a minute. Always a pleasure. But yeah, I like to do at least some mixing on the canvas. Not a ton and not always. Just in areas I like doing it. I think it's quite fun. Alright, we're gonna get into a bit more color variation now in her skin, because can't handle the generic flesh tone any longer. Thanks, man. Oh, is it? Chargers were ahead last I looked, Jay-Z. And I think, did the Raiders lose their quarterback? Did I hear something about that? A groin pull? Sounds not fun. So I'm just gonna mix up a kind of a couple variations here that I can play with. It's small, right? Because there's not a lot of surface area to worry about, right? Let's get you guys a little Maybe a little more head on with it. A little bit. It's still a little skewed. Because, you know, I need it to be head on, but... Wait, did he actually? Like, is it that bad? So it's not just like a muscle pull? Because that is no bueno. Oh, okay. Hey, it's football, man. That shit could happen. Alright. Just a little light there. So I'm throwing some colors down, and then I'll probably bring a little bit of lighter stuff over the top to kind of mix in a little bit. I don't want to go too light though. Remember, I have this tendency, as I've said before, to go a little too light in the lights rather than maybe leaning into the darks a little more. Yeah, pretty much. But what I did, Mauricio, when I started the stream today, so I was waiting. I'm actually glad that it was dry because it allowed me to then put a layer of walnut oil gel over the whole thing to kind of, you know, unify it. It creates a bit of a seal as it dries as well, but it gives me a nice surface to paint into, rather, because it was completely matte when it dried, and I hate that look, right? Because then everything flattens out and it's not fun. But yeah, it was pretty much all dry. It wasn't totally dry yesterday, but it's been so dry here in LA that I think it dried a little quicker than it normally would. Sneeze. I've been really trying to kind of think of the whole, you know, less is more sort of thing, and so like, I don't know, making an effort to try and get away with fewer marks and fewer details, and seeing if I can maybe make something more interesting as a result. Because like my tendency would be to just like start to get in there and try and like see how much detail I can maybe hint at in the eyes and stuff, and I don't think that would buy me anything. Even though in the drawing, like, it looks fantastic, but the drawing was actually probably a little bigger than this, the original drawing. Actually, I think I might have that original drawing handy. Let's see. All right. So yeah, the actual drawing is here. Yeah, pencil drawing. And definitely, I don't know if we can. Kind of see them side by side, maybe a little. So yeah, the drawing you can see is noticeably larger than this painting is. But plus, you know, with a pencil, obviously we can get all kinds of crazy little details in there. But I feel like for our purposes here, I don't really feel like those details are gonna buy us anything more, other than someone being like, "Ooh, look how detailed it is." And we don't care about that, right? What I do want to reinforce some of these shadow shapes. Mostly just getting some kind of... I'm not too concerned with getting core shadows, but I want something that I can mix the lights back into a little bit. So... I've never been terribly concerned with core shadows, you know, outside of like some class assignment. Yeah, for some reason I thought I had this. I'm very surprised that I have not really posted this drawing somewhere. I know I did on Instagram when I did the drawing, but I'm just kind of surprised that I didn't post it on ArtStation. I should, because I have, you know, a nice high-res JPEG. I mean, I'm looking at it on the screen, you know, right now. So, like, more than the little tiny details, I'm wanting to make sure that the general forms of the face are the way I want them to be. Right. So that's why I kind of want to give myself a bit of room to paint against the shadows a little bit. And she also should not look like she has lipstick on. Right? It's like post-apocalypse. She's not like going out on a date or anything. I don't mind the shadows being heavier, but where the lights are, I'm gonna wanna... I don't know, maybe she is going out on a date. You can date in the post-apocalypse, right? She looks very unhappy about this date if she's going on one. Yeah, it's funny. Mauricio asked that, I think, right before you popped in. I'm still debating, and I would rather get this part further along and then snap a picture of it and then see, you know, like basically add something in digitally and see if it really makes it better, right? Because that's the main thing, is like, if it's not going to make it better, there's no point in adding more to the image, right? Especially if you're like me and you really enjoy compositions with a lot of breathing room. So we need a bit of atmosphere. Not that much atmosphere though. But some in that tail to kind of push that tail back a bit. I mean, you know, I don't hate the idea of, you know, giving them a little more sense of place, I guess, you know, with putting something in the background, but I would definitely need to make sure that it's like what I really want, you know, and that it will make the image better. Soften up some of these edges. Even though I love the vibe of like the chiseled kind of edge, but I think some of those edges, to kind of let them sit back a little further, can stand to be softened up a bit. So this is where I'm wanting to now just kind of shift some temperatures around, you know, hue shifts a little bit in the skin tones. More color variation. And typically our skin gets a bit darker as it moves away from the torso, right? So in the appendages, typically our skin gets starts to get a bit darker. And even if it's someone that gets like a lot of sun, right, they'll still tend to their arms and legs will still get darker than the center of the torso. So you know, not a bad idea to kind of play with that and get a bit more sun on her. Because basically, if I don't want to go too much lighter on the torso, you know, then the other option is to get a little darker on the rest, right? No, I haven't explained it. Actually, so my idea is that it would work more as like almost like a warhammer, right? But I mean, if you think about a chunk of metal that size is gonna weigh probably 4 or 5 pounds, right? And if you were to swing this thing, because I haven't gotten into it, it has like, I have wraps up here, but I also have wraps that'll be further down. So if you swing that centrifugal force of a 4 or 5 pound chunk of metal hitting you would just full on kill you. Obviously it would depend on the type of metal, right? Like, so it might not be 5 pounds, but if it was like, say, solid iron or steel, it's a pretty heavy chunk of metal. And plus, I mean, this whole part here will be metal as well. So I'm thinking of it more as like a small warhammer at the end of a very long handle. So not like, obviously not as a spear, but you could throw it like a spear and that would just full on knock someone down big time. Especially because this is kind of like, people aren't wearing plate mail and shit, so you could still crush sternums. Sternum crusher. One thing I should consider is if I want to do any kind of like bounce light, right? Reflected light, especially coming up from the ground, because one of the things that can really effectively make the environment feel warmer, like hotter, like they're out in maybe a high desert sort of a thing, is getting that warm reflected light, right? And it's always something to consider, especially when we're kind of just thinking about compositionally what our 5 different lights are doing, right? Sure, I know I've said it before, but the 5 lights are lights, midtones, darks, accents, and reflected lights, right? Accents being accent darks and highlights. They're both accents, so. And it's not to say that we have to put reflected light in here, but aside from it helping the environment to maybe feel warmer, it can also add a little bit of air to the shadows if we want. But I think I wouldn't add it in until a little bit later. Again, just to make sure that it's what I really want in there. I feel like in some places it would get a little too detailed, and I don't know if that's the way I want to go. It might be. We'll see. We shall see. Too light there. Yeah, I have this, unless I put it away again. But I have this inkwell that's just solid brushed steel, and the thing is tiny, right? The thing's only that big, but it's like, it weighs probably a good 2 pounds. And it's half the size, a little less than half the size of that thing, and that inkwell is heavy. Highest, it'll be, I mean, realistically, it wouldn't make sense for her face to be lighter than her torso. And I may, depending, like, I may kick some of these lights down a little bit, but I also might wait for it to dry again and glaze things back, right? Because I like the look. To me, one of the benefits of and strengths of oil painting is layering, right? I love the alla prima stuff. And I mean, that's great. It's fantastic. Do it all in one go. Cherry Princess, thank you for the follow. Thank you. You know, the alla prima stuff is awesome, but it's its own kind of a look, right? And there are things that oils do really well that you can't do if you're painting alla prima. And one of those things is getting the benefit of the onion skinning effect as you layer things and start to get a really nice translucency when you have light playing within the surface, right? Oh, right on. Well, I'm glad you joined us over on Twitch. But, you know, YouTube's awesome too. Ah, thank you. Thank you. Twitch does have emotes. You're very, very right. And then the other thing is, of course, on the under part of the arm, we'll also get that lighter valued skin, right? I feel like I need to get a bit of highlight on her electrical tape pasty deal. Right, it needs to be catching some light, otherwise it just is flat, which is kind of fun, but it's maybe just a little too dark to keep it that way. And I would rather give some sense of form, even though I'm not opposed to having parts that do flatten out in a nice kind of like graphic designy kind of a way. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You just always want to make sure if you do that, that it's on purpose. Granted, if you just forget to render something up, you can always tell people it was on purpose. No one needs to know any different. If it's in my painting, there's a reason for it. Don't question me. Have I? No. I don't know, Cammy, but thank you. Wait, which one is, you're saying this is one of the most enjoyable? Because that's cool. I'm loving working on this piece, I have to say. I was a little nervous that it wouldn't go according to plan when I had first started it, but I'm enjoying where it has gone. I want to get let's think about some of these things. Actually get a little more heat in that. By heat, I mean more saturation. So going a tad more yellow with this leather. That's the hard part. If you do start getting a bunch of leather in a piece, like, I mean, leather can take on so many different colors that you have to kind of decide which way you want to go with it. Oh, right on. Well, thank you, Cami. I appreciate that. It's awesome. I'm glad you like them. Shadow here. One of the things I will do, whether it's traditional or digital, is I will push some of the light values really close to each other in areas, and just so I can kind of lose some of those edges just a little bit, but more than anything, it reinforces these little cast shadows, that kind of triangle, this sort of calligraphic mark it starts to create. Just has a really nice, I don't know, very satisfying kind of a vibe. No, it was, so I wasn't thinking of it as a spear, Mauricio. I'm thinking of it that she would swing it, not so much as a spear. And I'm thinking of it more as, first and foremost, like literally a walking stick that doubles as a weapon, you know? That's really what my thought was. Maybe she has other weapons too. I'm not sure. But I didn't really think about whether her face was the highest point in the composition, but that's kind of the way it ended up. And there was like a choice that I had to make, especially when I was printing it out and sort of deciding on the composition, was like, because it is asymmetrical, right, in terms of the weight of it. This Jaguar is closer to her, it's further away from camera, it's smaller in the composition. Closer meaning just compositionally closer, right? This one is a much more dominant shape than that. So, it was also where she's just a little off center because that they kind of lock up together, and then there's this one, and if she was centered, it pushed this one too far over, and just made it feel really awkward. So there were just choices I had to make. In the original drawing, she has a bit more breathing room above her head. And here, since we are a little bit kind of working a bit more all over, we can get a little wider on the composition here again. Right, just so you guys can get a little better sense of it, like of the space. And why I feel like this camera got tilted. Don't want that. There. But yeah, I do kind of like, you'll hear Autumn and I occasionally talk about the Frazetta triangle, right? We had a creative director at work a while back that, man, he loved that Frazetta triangle. Like, sometimes he'd be trying to figure out a composition or trying to figure out like what it needed or whatever, and inevitably we'd come back to him with a triangular composition, and he'd be like, yeah, love it. Like every time. It's funny. And since this is, no two ways about it, it is such a nod to Frazetta, I kind of felt like, might as well embrace that a bit. There's no point pretending it's anything else. So kind of leaning into his compositional tendencies. Yeah, Pete and I were gonna grab a whiskey at some point, and then the pandemic hit, and well, that didn't happen. I'm actually gonna put it up for sale once I'm actually happy with it. I just have not decided on a price yet, but that's sort of my intention with doing some of these paintings, basically just on like sealed paper, right? Is that I can get them done quicker because the drawing is already done. And this is taking a little longer, mostly because I'm doing it on stream, which is actually kind of nice. I was thinking about it today. I'm like, it's forcing me to slow down and think about it a little more. I feel like there's a good chance I would have kind of fucked it up had I been working on it off stream, because I feel like I would have started to rush through it a little too much, and that would just kind of be a shame. Yeah. So it's nice. It's nice practice for me to just kind of slow down and see that, oh hey, yeah, it works out better if I chill out a little bit and don't just like try and blast through everything at breakneck speeds. Although the one I painted up on Tuesday, which was off stream, because, you know, boobies. That one went pretty well, I have to say. I'm waiting for it to dry because I used a lot of the walnut gel, so it takes longer to dry when I use that stuff. Bring the palette in a little bit, right? This walnut oil gel over here. It extends the drying time, so the one from Tuesday needs a ways. It's not near dry enough, but I want to glaze it back because it did get a little too light on me. What? What sub? Which sub? I didn't get a notification. There it is. Haha, sub. Welcome, Camibo. You might have to here, now type something. You should have your little cat shield. There we go. I'm trying to think of how I want to tackle her weird half bra thing, and I think that's one where I might actually just, I don't want to go too much lighter, but I will cool off the lights a bit. But I would love to have not a ton of contrast on it, just for the kind of material play that'll give me. So I was thinking this is almost like a quilted leather kind of a thing. That was my idea. but when everything is so warm, it's like, it's really easy for everything to start feeling like it's the same material. So I'm kind of feeling like I need to push some of these things a little further apart with their colors. As you start to kind of zoom in on stuff, so to speak, you start to then notice the little things, like the contour being off. Which, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but in some areas I do want it to be clean. Because we're not doing a ton of detail in the shadows, right? The contour is what gives us a sense of sort of what's happening on the shadow side. Hey Willie, how's it going? Welcome. How are you doing this evening, Willie? Alright, I gotta figure out these shoulder situation. Shoulder pads and whatnot. Just got this strap across the chest there too. I cannot complain, my friend. It's been good, you know. I've just been really happy to be getting a little more oil painting in. That makes me very happy when I can do that. And trying to tackle it in a way, you know, where I can actually keep up with it this time. Every time I like do a bit of oil painting and then just as I'm really starting to warm up, I stop, you know, because I'm like, oh, here's another shiny little thing off in this corner. I'm going to do that. And then before I know it, another year goes by and I haven't oil painted. So I'm trying to pace myself, which is why I almost tried to knock out a small painting last night. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to take a break. And I'm just going to bug Autumn on his stream and play my cigar box guitar and drink some whiskey, because you know it's a good Wednesday night, I have to say. It is a good Wednesday night, and as a result I was raring to paint tonight. I don't want these shoulder pads to feel like super clean, you know? And I'm thinking these are some kind of like former, maybe they were partial football pads at one point. Like, just in my mind, she would just mix and match stuff, right? Post-apocalypse. Word. Tell her I said hi, man. Hope she's doing well. All right, man, I will be here. Wait, you're not Autumn's mom, are you? And let's assume in this warm climate that she's in that the sky is nice and blue. Nice and blue. So we're gonna get, it's kind of our chance to sneak in some more actual blues, is as some of these surfaces that are maybe not totally matte, even the matte ones, as they turn away from us and point toward the sky, right? We can sneak in a bit of blue from that skybox, right? Don't want to overdo it, but because, you know, one of the things that I've always kind of made an effort to do with illustration is to try and keep the subtlety of the realism, right? Of the not classic paintings, but literally the realist paintings that I love so much. Whether it was the Russian realists or the Dutch School of Art or whoever, the American realists, all of them, French realists. They were all badass. That shadow under the pad there, I think, is a little bit too dark. So we're gonna add. It looks like a really nice chance to get some crazy kind of saturation in there, and start to maybe play with getting a little bit of light play, I guess you could say. It doesn't take much. But it will give those shadows a little bit of air, a little bit of breathing room. That's a good question. I don't know if there are mediums that I have yet to try that I want to. I mean, there are plenty of mediums that I haven't tried yet, but it's mostly because I don't have any interest in going there. You know, like, say, marble sculpture. I love marble sculpture, but I'm like, dude, that's so far from anything that I would want to, like, do stuff with, that I'm like, whatever. But, you know, because I don't know, I've tried a lot of mediums. Generally, like, if I have an interest in them, I at least give them a shot to see, like, hey, is there something here that I want to maybe explore further? And sometimes, you know, maybe there's stuff that I would like to do something more with, but maybe it's just so far from what I do for work that I'm like, okay, I can do that later. Right now I need to kind of, I feel like I should keep things more along the lines of what will also be usable at work, you know? So I try to keep it kind of in the sort of painting realm. So here's our reflected light. Remember, the reflected light should never be as bright as anything in the lights, right? This is still in the shadow side. So reflected light oftentimes will just be a shift in temperature, right? And or maybe just a shift in saturation, but it shouldn't be like another light source unless you're talking about a fill light or some kind of rim light situation where it's actually catching something from a direct light source. But reflected light is just that. It's reflected. It's an indirect light source. So it should never be as light as anything in the shadows. If you make it that bright, it'll look wrong. Right? I mean, so there's stuff that I would like to do more things with. I mean, I'm already kind of working more in oils, which I'm very happy about. I would like to do some more watercolor stuff at some point. Again. I'm trying to think. I mean, I would like to do some sculpting, not marble sculpture, but just like maquettes, Sculpey, you know, and I have all the tools and I have a shit ton of Sculpey, so I can. It's just one of those things, again, I'm like, well, I don't quite know what I would do with it, you know, and I don't have like all this space to like store sculptures because they take up room and you need them to be able to sit upright and not get all messed up. I mean, one of these days I would love to take, and was going to actually before the lockdown, like I was going to sign up for one of Simon Lee's sculpting classes, because his studio is just here in Alhambra, literally like, I don't know, 10 minutes from where I live. And Simon Lee is an absolute beast. Like, his sculptures, you know, speaking as a sketch artist, right, who just absolutely loves sketches, Simon Lee's sculptures look like sketches, and I think they're just phenomenal. Just so beautiful, so much life. And I would love to kind of take one of his classes. I think it would be a lot of fun. Let's get this whole situation figured out. I do want it to be metal. And I think I want to cool it off a little bit. I don't want it to be quite so warm. So let's see about that. Yeah, he is, man, I got nothing. And that dude was he a banker? Or like worked in investment banking or some shit until he was like 40? And then kind of found that he could, I think he had started sculpting a couple years before he left the banking world. And just found that he really loved it and was really good at it. So he's just like, screw this banking stuff. I'm going to go be like one of the most badass concept sculptors there is. You know, that guy's fast enough that he will do concept art in sculpting. So cool. And that just goes to show you're never too old to try something new, you know? I think we get discouraged sometimes by social media, and it's one of the detriments of social media. One of many, though there are, of course, there are many, many benefits. I mean, so many artists I would never know about if it wasn't for social media, right? But one of the detriments is that the general public, not artists, but everybody else, holds so much stock in someone being able to do something when they're young. They think that somehow makes them more amazing, right? So, and don't get me wrong, yeah, like I see people that are, you know, a good deal younger than me, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, they're badasses, you know? And it's awesome, and sometimes I have to just ignore the fact that they're a good deal younger than me. I don't feel threatened, not at all. Hell, Jay-Z, man, you're like 10 years younger than I am, you know? And fuck, dude, you're fast as hell, and your art is fucking killer. You know, I look at like Evan Amundsen. I think he's eight years younger than I am. And fuck, dude, that guy is another one who's an absolute beast, you know? And, but there's something to be said for, I don't know, someone that has a certain amount of experience and, you know, has just gone through a lot of different pitfalls and all that stuff. And, kind of, I can say, you know, the way that I worked when I was younger, very different than how I work now, you know. And when I was younger, I had a really hard time slowing down, you know. And I can say with absolute truth that much of my technique came from the fact that I was a bit lazy and impatient. Okay. And it sounds weird, and I'm not saying that it was a bad thing per se, because it ended up helping me a lot. Now, I'm glad I'm not lazy and impatient now. Sometimes I get a little impatient. Sometimes I get a little lazy, but in general. So one of the main reasons that I learned to be able to do stuff out of my head to, you know, a fairly high level was because even when I found out that everyone used reference for stuff, I didn't want to have to go and look for reference. Like, that just seemed annoying to me, and I just didn't want to have to deal with it. And it was absolute laziness. And so then I was like, no, I'm just going to learn to do this without reference because I don't feel like dealing with reference. Now, I've learned over the years that, hey, look, sometimes just look for some reference and it'll just make your job so much easier. Like, if I'm really starting to struggle on something, I'll look for something. But generally what I try and do is I just try to really pay attention to things and study them and try and lock them into my brain to use later and hopefully not need reference. So it's not like I never look at anything, because I do. I just don't use it directly when I'm painting or drawing, unless it's for work and I have to like nail the likeness of an actor or something. And then of course you need reference for that. Oh yeah, I was working on that hammer. I get distracted and sidetracked and wherever my brush takes me. Kind of feel like I want to put more Indian music on here. I love this stuff. They're like, I don't know. Takes me back to my childhood. Listening to this stuff with my mom. Visiting my cousins in India. Yeah, I love this stuff. It's kind of a nice change, right? Hey, our Frosty, thank you. Trying, man. We're trying. We're trying to just move it along and not fuck it up. It's always the struggle, right? Just don't fuck it up. So part of kind of what I was saying as far as, you know, if you're not going to use reference, you have to also kind of just resign yourself to the fact that it might take twice as long to finish something because it's going to involve a bit of like painting around until you find what it is you're looking for. And you know, now that is kind of where it sounded so thriller right now. That is partly where doing something like a digital study beforehand can help with that. Jay-Z, it's like that, what is that, that State Farm commercial with Aaron Rodgers where they're at the golf course? He gives it like that old Happy Gilmore swing where he takes like that 2 steps and just whacks the ball. Love it. Yeah, those commercials crack me up, dude. Do you want to get the wraps on that are lower? Thinking of what color I want that shaft of the staff to be. It's probably basically the same thing, huh? That's cool. I kind of like that idea. You know, even in those dry climates, right? You'll still get those, like a fog that'll come through sometimes. Not often, because you know you need a certain amount of moisture for that, but you'll still get some. I don't usually add. I'm trying to think of. I want to get some lights on those wraps. It's never a good idea to just add white to a color and say, "Oh, there's the light," right? A general kind of good rule to follow is white plus 1, right? So anytime you add white to a color, add color as well. It'll help keep things from getting too chalky, right? And I know that, like, I think when one of the streams a little while back, someone was a little shocked, I think, when I said I'm just not as into Caravaggio's work as I used to be, right? And that's the reason. I love, like, his actual lighting and the drawing that went into it, right? Were awesome. I'm just not a fan of that technique of just using tints and shades to paint, right? So tint being when you add white, shade being when you add black, and that was kind of how he got his lights and darks. And so there was a pastiness, I feel, to a lot of the colors. But all right, Jay-Z, man, thanks for hanging out, brother. And let's at least jump on like a Discord, like a camera Discord hangout. Maybe tomorrow if you want, just so we can be doing our work and just chill, because it's been too long. Cool. Then yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I will make that shit happen. Vistra, you're asking, when using reference, do you or any of the artists here find there are specific things you find yourself going to references more often for? That's a very good question. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what maybe I find myself referencing the most. And you know what it probably is? Girls' abs. Because depending on how fit they are, there can be so many little things going on, and it can vary widely from person to person. So, there isn't just like, oh, this is what every single fit girl's abdominal region looks like. There's no such thing, really. And so there are times that I will grab reference just to add variety, it's just like, cool. And I won't, I'll try not to use like the same reference over and over too, because I want a sense, some kind of variety in it as much as I can. But there's so many little things, and you would think that some of that stuff would be a little more like set in stone, so to speak. But man, there's a huge variety. It's ridiculous. And like you would think, no, but this is how these muscles work. But nope. Sometimes people have got bumps where other people don't. He did. Caravaggio had a very theatrical style of lighting. Very much that kind of single light source kind of a thing, you know. And very, very dramatic, which is cool. Like, I love the drama, the theatricality of that. I think, obviously, I mean, there's so much to love in his work. I'm not as drawn to that type of painting as I am to, say, the realists, right? The chiaroscuro stuff is great as a study in drama, but I've just found over the years that I've really tended to gravitate toward the realist painters. You know, like Sargent's brushwork with like Waterhouse's color palette and storytelling, you know, like that would be my ideal. But not just Sargent's brushwork. Who's the what's his name? Wow, Russian guy who did the those damn Russians, man. I'm gonna find it. I think I'm gonna find it. Maybe I won't. Yes, Ilya Repin, right? He did the dudes pulling the boat, pulling the big ship. Fucking love that painting. So like his brushwork as well, and just his sense of light and his control of values, so good, so good. Brush hair here. We'll wait for that to dry. So she has a wrap on her arm, so I don't want it so smooth. Yeah, Repin was so badass. Those Russians, man. Those people can paint. It's that discipline, you know, to just the kind of studying that they would do is exactly the kind of studying I would never have the patience for, you know. And it's not to say you can't get there any other way. It just might take longer, or you're gonna get there in like a roundabout way, right? Like I feel like maybe I would have the patience to do those kinds of paintings now, maybe. But when I was first learning to paint, there's no way. I was so impatient. It was ridiculous. I mean, that is literally why I became a sketch artist, was because I just loved sketching. I loved getting ideas down really fast. Yeah, and just didn't really want to do it any other way. And it's just after now, you know, finishing up my 13th year as a sketch artist that I'm like, I kind of want to slow down now. I'm tired of just like cranking stuff out breakneck speeds all the time. Let's take it easy. How about that? Want to get like holes and stuff in here. All right, Mauricio. Hey, thanks for hanging out, man. I appreciate it. Always appreciate the questions. Keeps the conversation going. It's maybe a little too cool. I don't want to go that cool with the lights on that. There we go. That's a little better. There's so many little things going on, and this is always kind of, I think, what would sort of bite me in the ass in the past was that, you know, my drawing skills outpaced my painting skills, and so just because I could draw it, it didn't mean that I could paint it, right? And I feel like I've gotten a much better handle on this stuff now, that I don't feel intimidated by the stuff that I can draw. And I know, most of it was just kind of telling myself that it's like, look, give it enough time, yeah, of course you can paint it. So just chill out, give yourself space, you know, to have the time to do it. Don't rush it. Just paint it until it's done. Right? But I would just be like, oh, I'm gonna add this and this and this, and it'd take like, 5 minutes to add this shit in a drawing, and then I'm like, wow, I just set up like 2 or 3 more hours worth of painting for myself just by doing that 5 minutes of drawing. Awesome. Fuck, I might keep that dark, I think. Just because otherwise it's gonna get a little too close to the skin tone. And value-wise, I want it to be darker than the skin, so it makes sense to go dark with that. Let's see here. Ever use your fingers to oil paint? But any painter will tell you there's certain marks and edges you can't really get any other way. What are you gonna do, right? Let's think about what color I want her former skirt thing to be. Looks like it used to be a utility kilt or something. It's got the cargo pockets. I want to get a little bit of crazy. Yeah, it could be something like that. Frosty. That's where I'm just not sure like what color I want it to be. You know, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like I'm really like ending up with everything being like really warm, you know, and if I were to just lighten this up, it would get into her flesh tone. So that's where I'm like, well, do I want to push it, you know, one way or the other, you know, a little more cool or more warm, right? Because it could be like something that it doesn't have to be leather per se, or it could be a dyed leather, you know. We could definitely play with some possibilities. Just want to get a little bit of light in the grass. Without going too heavy-handed with it, you know. Subtle, it's almost just adding texture in a way. Because I don't want to get into painting like every blade of grass, and if we start to get really opaque with this stuff, then we lose that sort of illusion of indication. I mean, I could go, you know, because like I got the nice cools up here, and so I was considering going either toward blue or toward like a really desat kind of olive green, you know, just to have that green against the sort of orange and reds, kind of a complementary color a bit. But I mean, the nice thing is I could easily reference this blue, right? Because one of the other things that Harvey Dunn would say was once you have a few good tones and a few good colors in your painting, then just repeat those tones and colors to finish the painting, right? And that's kind of how he would create a really, really nice unity in his work. And I've been really kind of taking that to heart, and it's something that I would do anyway with my digital work, right? Once I kind of got my basic tones and colors down, I should say, because I do it all the time. Once I get my basic tones and colors down in my digital work, I just start color picking from what's already on the palette, right? I don't sit there and try and add a ton of new colors, because things can start to get muddy, spotty, disjointed, right? When you do that. Whereas if you kind of keep your values, your value range, and your color range a little more simplified, then it's a little easier to kind of keep it unified and stronger as a result. So I don't hate the idea of kind of referencing that blue a little bit, just to like get a nice cool color in there, but still have the palette unified without getting too crazy with a bunch of color variation. Willie, welcome back. We're just hinting at some grass here without getting too explicit too prescriptive with our details. Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, I'm having a very good time painting this app. You know, I can't remember the last time with an oil painting that I really kind of did a pretty good job of making good choices. Basically, it's been a while since I haven't fucked up an oil painting. So, yeah, we're gonna try and keep that. Keep our winning streak of 1 going through to the finish. Yeah, let's at least get some cools working, because it could also be like a nice denim or something, you know. I mean, not a nice, maybe it once was a nice denim, but maybe not so much anymore. I'm a big denim fan. I mean, I'm wearing this denim painting apron right now that I love. How do I go about drawing animals? That's a good question. It depends on how long it's been since I last drew animals, right? Because I'll go through phases where I kind of am drawing them a fair amount, right? And at which point, like, I'll study them a bit, and not necessarily, like, maybe I'll do some stuff from reference, maybe. I don't always do drawings directly from reference, but sometimes I will, just as studies, and then just to kind of get to know the anatomy a bit, right? And then I'll put the reference away and just draw out of my head, hopefully having learned something. But it also helps to know that with most mammals, at least, the skeletal and muscular structures are largely the same, right? They're just different shapes, right, and proportions. So knowing that, say, big cats, for example, have deltoid muscles and triceps and biceps and, you know, brachioradialis muscles and, you know, trapezius and all that. But cats, at least house cats, I don't know if big cats have collarbones, or if their collarbones are just not attached. I forget what it is, but basically, because like house cats don't have clavicles, they can fit anything their head can fit through, their body can fit through, because their body can just compress, right? Because they don't have these clavicles to lock their shoulders in place. Or they have floating clavicles, and I don't remember. I feel like it's birds that have a floating something or other, but point is, that doesn't matter. It's just a fun little tidbit. The point is, in general, the muscular and skeletal systems aren't different other than shape. So as you're learning those systems, whether it's on humans or cats or dogs, right, knowing that they're basically the same helps a lot. So if you understand the human structures, then understanding cats and dogs and horses and whatever other mammals you want to, paint, it's not as difficult. It's not as daunting, because it's not like you have to learn something completely new, right? For me, it also helps the fact that I have a cat. And in that regard, cats are kind of the same. Like, I'll watch videos of jaguars, and jaguars and leopards, and they'll take the same poses that my cat does, and so there's a lot of similarities that I can kind of pull from, to kind of understand what I might do with them, Yeah. So, if you have a cat, I mean, hell, just do little gesture drawings of your cat, to start to understand the kind of the details and how you can maybe draw some of those poses in a convincing way, with a bit of credibility behind it. And I think it also helps to try and do drawings of animals where they're in motion, like it just kind of helps to sort of understand the muscles that are working a bit more. And there are things that I feel like I need to kind of go back and study up on a little bit with, mostly with big cats, because those are my favorite animals to draw. What can't I draw? It's a good question. I'm sure there's something I can't draw. I feel like at this point, just from my work assignments, I've had to draw so many different kinds of things. I mean, we'd have to get really specific as far as like if I was to draw something out of my head, and then it's mostly just a matter of like, okay, how good is my recall ability, of that thing. But I've just had to draw so many different things that And if it happened to be something I'd never drawn before, then I'd have to learn real quick how to draw it, you know, because clients are waiting. Like, it's just not an acceptable answer for me to be like, I've never drawn that before, so can we put something else on this poster? Because I don't know how to draw that. Nope. But, you know, if you were to say, okay, right now, hey, draw, I don't know what, off the top of my head, you know. Draw a spotted hyena. I could probably get pretty close, at least close enough that you would know what I was drawing, but I'm sure the details would be way off, you know? Hey, Underfire 987. Hello. Wow, Art Rage. I forgot about Art Rage, to be honest. How is Art Rage? I remember back in the day they were pretty, they did a pretty good job of having a nice, like, artsy vibe. But man, I can't remember the last time I used it. Probably a good 10 years ago. Cool. Yeah, mostly, I don't know, I pretty much just use like Photoshop and Procreate at this point for digital stuff, obviously. Obvi. But yeah, it's been really great to get back to doing some traditional. Makes me happy. Do more of like a brass kind of a buckle. To darken that down a bit. That's okay. We can just get the color in there for now, and then some But doing the accents, it's always a little tricky not to make them feel like lines, right? Like you're outlining stuff. So usually the trick is like kind of laying in some accents and then sort of painting back against them to sort of get that overlap, right? Getting jazzy. Feels like a rainy scene in a film noir. And we step into a bar out of the rain. Get a nice 2 fingers of scotch, but not too expensive. One of the things I don't like to do is to have shapes that feel too blobby, right? Too round. Which is why I will kind of cut back in, you know, I'll lay a shape down and then cut back in to sharpen it up where I need. Uh-oh, we just switched from scotch to moonshine. I'm okay with that. He's got a jug with 3 X's on it. I like to go heavy in places, but it's usually, hey, Exley Sketch, thanks for the follow. I do like to go heavier with the paint in areas. Usually though, it's toward the end. I'm not one of those that's gonna just like be caking on paint. You know, I do like working a bit thin with transparency. It's like, so I specifically have, with the exception of cadmium red light and titanium white. And here, just so you guys can see, I can actually pop this palette out because it's just on with magnets. But let's make sure we don't lose our little scraper. So we can look at the palette here real quick. I've got, let's try and square this up, shall we? So I have a transparent brown iron oxide, transparent red iron oxide, permanent crimson, cadmium red light, Indian yellow, titanium white, ultramarine blue, manganese blue hue, olive green, and Payne's gray, and then a big glob of walnut oil gel, which I use to thin out the paint or add transparency to the paint without making it more watery, right? It also extends the drawing time. So, hey, thanks, Exley. That's awesome. So all of these, with the exception of white and the cad red light, are transparent paints, right? And I specifically choose them for that reason because I love working with transparency. It's partly because I also love watercolors, so I like to be able to kind of use them in a similar way without having to, like, you know, break my brain to figure out how to remember how to use one medium or the other. But I also know that I can always add a little bit of white to something to make it more opaque, right? Like, that's still a decently dark, this is still a decently dark value, right? It just takes a little bit of white to add opacity to it. Really not much. So I do tend to work transparent. I do like working wet into wet, but there are certain effects that you can only get by layering the paint, by letting a previous layer dry before you bring another layer in. So, and I think with oil paints, that's one of their main strengths, right? Is being able to layer them and get that onion skinning effect as as the light kind of refracts within the layers of paint on the surface, you know. Yeah, walnut oil, I mean, it takes forever to dry, and this stuff does extend the drying time as well. So it does take longer to dry, but I love using it. As far as I know, there's only one company that makes it, and it's the Rublev Colors. They're actually just based up in Northern California. So you can get it in a tube. They have a smaller tube also, you know, the normal size tube of paint, right? The 37 milliliter, or maybe they have a 50 milliliter, I forget. But they have a smaller tube in case it's something you just want to test out, or you can get it in a larger can as well. So I would highly, highly recommend this stuff. It's fantastic. Yeah, I think, you know, it's just like there's no other way to get some of that depth, and other mediums just don't do it as well as oils do. So, yeah, I think the website I think is Natural Pigments. That's what the actual company is, but their oil paint line or whatever is Rublev. And it's interesting because they actually specifically make their paints in the very like classical way. So they don't put a bunch of additives within the paint. It's just the pigment and the binder. So pretty old school. I haven't used their paints, though I did just order their ultramarine blue because it looks beautiful. I use Williamsburg paints. Also not a lot of additives as far as I know. If we look at this, well, I don't know if they have the full ingredients, but I think Williamsburg, I want to say they just use a linseed oil binder and the pigment. So they list their pigments, but not necessarily. Yeah, no, here, so they have their pigment, which is the PR122 pigment with the linseed oil binder, and that's it. So, Williamsburg is also good. I love their colors because they have a lot of pigment in their stuff. In terms of the pigment to binder ratio, I feel like Winsor & Newton, which my olive green is Winsor & Newton because they make the best olive green, hands down. But I feel like they have more binder in their tubes of paint than some of the other kind of nicer companies. So, yeah, and I prefer to kind of have the option, you know, to not have as much binder in there and to have it stronger pigment or drier if I want. But that's also why their, you know, tubes of paint are not quite as expensive as Winsor & Newton or as Williamsburg, right? Same with Old Holland. Like Old Holland, crazy high pigment ratio, right? But as a result, you get a lot more use out of a tube of Old Holland than you do out of a tube of like Winsor & Newton or Williamsburg. Because you have so much pigment in there, it just goes for days. Yeah. And my Payne's Gray, I think, is Holbein. I love the gray, but their Payne's Gray, I feel like, is a little weak, a little thin. I love the color. You just have to use a lot of it if you want to try and influence other colors with it. But Holbein makes the best gouache, hands down. Their gouache is awesome. Yeah, it is. It is. And yeah, coming from acrylic, I mean, at least, you know, you'll have a sense of brush handling. So that's useful, but definitely like the difference in drying time is huge. Supposed to have, I don't know if I have, yes. there are times. There's just no other way to do it. You just gotta bring a pencil in. I don't know if it'll get dark enough. But the nice thing is that the pencil with the stuff and the oils, the pencil will basically just bind to the... I'm not normally going to worry about that much detail, but yeah. I mean, the palette can still dry unless you keep it sealed. You know, the nice thing is, like, this thing folds up, so my palette, the colors on it will stay wet for quite a while, depending on the colors. So certain colors dry faster than others. But like Cad Red Light, Indian Yellow, Titanium White, Ultramarine Blue, and Olive Green take forever to dry. Like, those things will just stay wet for like weeks. Transparent Brown Oxide dries super fast. Transparent Red Oxide dries a little bit slower. This Permanent Crimson dries faster than, say, alizarin crimson, but not as fast as the oxides do. Manganese Blue, because this one I squeezed out on Monday, and it's still wet, but it's definitely thickening. So, you know, it's on its way. And then you can always, like, I mean, I was gonna say you can always add dryers to the paint to dry it faster, but I don't like to, because most of those things are toxic as shit. And we don't want to go super toxic with stuff. Why? Because oils can do stuff that acrylics cannot. And acrylics, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've seen some absolutely gorgeous acrylic paintings, but there is still at the end of the day, with acrylics, you are still literally painting with plastic. And so when acrylics dry, even with a varnish, there is still a plasticky feel to them, right? And so even when you layer transparent layers, you don't get the translucency in it that you do with oils. So there's a big difference with oils and acrylics. I think acrylics are great for certain things, but depending on the look and the feel that you want, they may not be able to achieve everything, you know. I mean, likewise, it's not like oils can achieve everything either, right? Like, if you want a watercolor look, oils are not the way to go, right? I mean, you can get something kind of close, sort of similar, but it's not going to be the same as watercolor. Get a little bit of, I'm going to cheat a little bit of atmosphere. I don't want to go too heavy into that, because then it starts getting really, like, illustrated, right? And I like I said before, I try and at least, pretend that it's not just illustration, that it's something more. Whether I succeed or not, who knows? But, I at least try and use the methodologies and the thought processes of like the old realists, even though like this is about as far from that true goal as you can get. They would never have worked completely without reference, but whatever. That's how we do around these parts. Syntax rigor, yes, I am painting on paper, but it is, let's see, what do? I put a couple layers of matte medium on the front and the back, a layer of clear gesso on the front and the back, and then I just sanded the gesso down, because clear gesso has like a sandpaper kind of a grit to it when it dries. And so I just took a very fine-tooth sandpaper once it dried and just sanded mostly around the face, right, to get some of those details. But yeah, because I had done, this was a pencil drawing that I had done, Prismacolor pencils on acetate before, like the original image, and I'd done it 2 or 3 years back. I actually have the original drawing here, right? So, that was my pencil drawing. So basically, I just scanned it in and printed it out on, a heavyweight matte paper. Because it just made more sense than redrawing it. It's so much quicker to just like print it out. But I have to say, I much prefer painting on like a really fine weave linen. I'm not a huge fan of the texture of this, but I just didn't really want to deal with transferring the drawing. Shit, there was something else I was gonna do. Oh, yes. Her little electrical tape pasties. Again, this is a total nod to Tank Girl with the tape pasties, right? Oh, you'd probably have to order them online. I can't. There are a couple places here that do them, but because I tend to paint smaller, most of them don't do a fine enough weave for what I like. So I order from New Traditions art panels. They're not cheap. I'll tell you right now, they're not cheap, but they are so beautifully made. You can get them cheaper if you get them on the gator board instead of like birch. But for a 9x12 panel, 9x12 inch, so this size panel, oh, camera's freaking out. Same size as this, on gator board for like the really fine weave. I love their L600. I love the A600 because I prefer an alkyd primed linen. For some reason, they don't have them available. They only have the lead primed. But it's a really beautiful, it's like a custom portrait grade linen for them. But for a 9x12 on Gator board of that, it's like, I think it's $20 for one panel. So it ain't cheap. But I love those things. But not great for practice. If you're still kind of just practicing, I don't know, I would probably recommend just doing like a plain wood panel. I personally, I hate canvas, like from the Blick store, like their canvas panels. I can't stand them. I hate that canvas. Super rough texture, like super heavy weave. It just feels cheap to me. I hate the gesso that they use on it. I don't like anything about their canvas panels. For years, I painted just on wood panels, where I could really like control the texture I was painting on. I would do like modeling paste kind of texture on it, and then sand it down, get it all nice and smooth in areas, and yeah. At some point switched over to a nice linen, and really hard to go back. So like this has been a little bit of a struggle. Not so much. Now it's fine. Now once I get paint on there, it's like whatever. I don't really notice a difference. It's in those initial stages, but it's hard to like beat linen for just a nice texture, you know. Yeah. Yeah, and you know what you can also do, depending on the type of texture that you like to paint with, that's where sometimes I'll do like a couple layers of gesso, and then like one layer of clear gesso, and then another thin layer of gesso over the top of the clear gesso. Just because the clear gesso has that sort of gritty texture, and then one layer of gesso will sort of knock that down a little bit. But also the clear gesso is more absorbent, so it takes a lot more paint to really build up that nice oil paint feel, you know, whereas like normal gesso, kind of the paint sits on top just a little bit more. But the clear gesso, I do like the tooth on it, just not too much tooth. But yeah, I mean, when I would do the panels, the wood panels, man, it would take me like a full day to prep a panel, because just like layers and sanding, you gotta really let it dry, and you know, get impatient and break out the hairdryer. I do like how the color here ties her in kind of with the jaguars a bit too. Belt is feeling a little bit heavy, a little broad. Feel like we need to thin it down a little bit. And then also, if you're interested in kind of using more like non-toxic materials. So one, I mean, the walnut oil gel is fantastic, but you can also get like a brush cleaner. I have a brush cleaner that's essentially non-toxic. So as opposed to like mineral spirits, you know, that is. Of course, I just put the bottles away today. Hang on, let me grab the bottle real quick. Knocking the camera around. So, this stuff by Chelsea Classical Studio. Come on. Chelsea Classical Studio. Made for artists by artists. The Lavender brush cleaner, non-toxic. And it not cheap, but come on, non-toxic brush cleaner, like it's worth it. Not cheap meaning, so this is 16 ounces, and I think 2 of these, so 32 ounces, runs you about $100. But it's a brush cleaner, right? So I just keep it in my little jar here, right? And it'll last for a fucking long time. So to me it's totally worth the come in, focus camera, focus, do your job. You got one job. No. It's like, no, we want to look at the painting. So yeah, I would highly recommend this stuff. Chelsea Classical Studio. Lavender brush cleaner. They also make a citrus brush cleaner if you prefer a citrus scent. It's basically largely using essential oils, right? And it's great stuff. But on the other hand, you can also just use walnut oil to clean your brushes. So you don't really need the brush cleaner. I like the brush cleaner, but not necessary. Thanks, man. Yeah, I've been, I was definitely like really putting some thought into the color palettes, and not wanting it to feel too like monochrome, but also not wanting to go all crazy. Like I didn't want it to be all super colorful, which is always a tricky balance. That's one of the things I was gonna do. Weird time. Oh man. Been on for almost 4 hours. I lost track of time. Alright, well, I should probably think about calling it a night here. It's maybe get a little, well, let's try not to get crazy glare. We might be better off bringing the camera to the painting so that our lighting doesn't get all fucked up. Get in for some more close-ups. There's our girl, right? And our kitties. Here, I'll try oops, other way. Giving you a little more light in there. Ugh. We're just getting the glare on that one. Oh well. You get the idea. So there we are. Word. Yeah, oh, I didn't touch that jaguar eye viscera other than adding just the tiniest little bling on the iris, but otherwise, like, I was like, no, I love those marks. Leaving them. Yeah, there is a big difference. I feel like the best digital artists have some experience with traditional, so it's a good thing. Good thing to mess around with. There's one little, hey cat, what are you doing? There's this one little. So I don't like it when things feel outlined, right? And so that's what I don't want. This eye feels outlined because it was, basically. It had an equal dark line around the whole thing, so just had to change that. All right. I don't think I'm gonna raid tonight because I gotta turn in. So yeah, we're not gonna raid. I think we're gonna call it a night. I'm going to be back on Monday, but I think I'm gonna be taking Monday off from work, in which case I'm going to stream during the day, and it'll probably be a really nice long stream. I'll try and give y'all a little bit of a heads up. If you're on the Discord, I'll throw an announcement there. If you follow me on Instagram, I will probably put it up there in my stories or something. If you don't follow me, you can find the links there, and you can follow me. and I'll try and give y'all a heads up because I would like to do at least 1 or 2 long streams before Christmas. I think it'd be fun. So, until then, my friends, y'all have a fantastic night. I hope you have fantastic weekends. And we will see y'all on Monday. All right?